Amanda, and thank you so much everyone for joining. I'm truly honored to be here and share this information that I'm truly so passionate about. And there's so much research right now talking about the mind-gut connection and the microbiome. So I'm very honored to just bring this to each of you. So thank you for carving out an hour of your day. And I'm super honored to be following Albert's footsteps for part 2 of the mind-gut connection. He did an amazing job with part 1. So if you were not there, go back on YouTube and you have to check this out because it was unbelievable. So the mind-gut connection, I know there's a lot of things out there that we hear in the media and also diet culture and other things about our gut is our second brain. And we always hear this all the time, but it's like, why? You say it, but why? Is this a marketing tactic? Is it actually our second brain? And a little bit of both, to be honest, but our gut is so, so important, and which is one of the reasons why I decided to become a dietitian, in order to do that. So to start, I wanted to share a little bit about the nutrition philosophy at the dorm. It's actually National Nutrition Month. So shout out to any other dietitian out there. Alyssa Resnick, I know you are here, and any other dietitian, thankful for each of you. So at the dorm, we follow an intuitive eating approach. Intuitive eating, this honors your physical and mental health by integrating instinct, emotion, and rational thought. So there's 2 components of intuitive eating. The first component is the attunement between the mind and body connection. And the second component is the obstacles that might get in the way of that.
I'll check that right now.
So for example, that can be limiting beliefs that we might have. Maybe it's rules from parents, but also can be, for example, if you didn't get enough sleep the night before, that's totally going to affect your eating the next day, right?
Like creating a grocery list, maybe.
Okay.
If you guys want to make me co-host, I can mute whenever someone's, if that's helpful. Tell me. Okay.
Thank you. I'm working on it. Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. Has anyone heard of the term interoceptive awareness before? Yeah, okay, I see a couple hands. So interoceptive awareness, we're gonna do a very, very exciting activity that we do with all of our clients when they get here. Interoceptive awareness, this is the ability to identify and understand and respond appropriately to the patterns of our internal signals. So a lot of times at the dorm, we are a mental health facility, and people might come to me and they say, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat anything. I feel sick to my stomach, and we talk about it and they're feeling anxious. So our body, we might feel in our internal body before our brain can process what we're experiencing. So one activity that we're going to do together to practice interoceptive awareness and that mind-body connection and that attunement is, let's go ahead and try to find our pulse. Everyone take your pulse. And for the next 15 seconds, we're going to start counting. Ready, go. Okay, stop. Multiply that by 4. So that's your heartbeat per minute. Now, lay your hands flat. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and I want you, through mind-body connection, to find your pulse for 15 seconds. It's really challenging. I'm just going to shout that out. Ready? Go ahead. Stop. Now multiply that by 4. Was anyone close? No, could anyone even feel it the second time? Probably not. And that's something I want to encourage you to practice, but the same thing can go with our gut and how is that mind-body connection with our hunger cues and other things as well, like our hunger cues, our fullness cues, if we're feeling anxious in our stomach and other things. So that is interoceptive awareness. And that's a key component to intuitive eating, which is the foundation here at the dorm. At the dorm, we work with eating disorders, executive functioning, to make sure people are eating enough in a variety of foods. So let's go ahead and go into our agenda for today and start talking about the microbiome a little bit. Okay, so today we are going to be speaking about the microbiome and the importance of including diversity and density into our overall diet, the mind-body connection through the vagus nerve, and going through a clinical case study here at the dorm. So what is the microbiome? The microbiome, I'm sure you've heard we have good bacteria, we have bad bacteria, but what does this actually mean? The truth is, they both serve an important purpose. It's when that ratio is off is why we talk about that and why we need more good bacteria and bad bacteria. But the microbiome as a whole, it's a community of microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, viruses that inhabit a particular environment, and especially the collection of microorganisms living in or on the human body. It just gets cooler from here. So what does a microbiome do? It supports our immune system. It protects against pathogens. That brain-gut access, that mind-body connection we're going to be diving into today. Digestion and the breakdown of food. It produces nutrients. It produces certain vitamins and minerals that we don't need to eat by mouth. And it also helps us absorb minerals as well. Question for each of you. Put in the chat, what % of our immune system resides in our gut? I'm curious what everyone's going to put. What % of our immune system resides in our gut? I'm very impressed by these answers. I'm very impressed. The answer is 70%. So 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. And a lot of times I get questions, is this nature or is this nurture? Can our gut change over time? So we need to go through about like, where does our immune system even develop and our microbiome even develop? And actually, so we are sterile in our mother's womb, and we receive our microbiome during birth, through the birth canal. When comparing vaginally delivered infants and infants delivered via a C-section, the gut microbiota of C-section infants had significantly less resemblance to their mother's gut microbiotas, with a 41% match to the species found in their mother's stool compared to the 72% match of vaginally born infants. This difference starts to diminish between 4 and 12 months of age. So it's very interesting. Now, so that's where our immune system and microbiota and microbiome initially comes from. Also in breast milk, and I believe that is best, whether it's tube feeding, whether it's breast milk, whether it's formula, we have to feed our youngins. However, breast milk, it does contain live microbiomes, IgA, different antibodies, cytokines. This helps support our immune system. Studies show, now this is really cool. Have you ever heard, did anyone's parents ever say, no, my parents said this all the time growing up? Show me your 5 friends and I'll show you who you are. Yeah, yep. So that actually goes the same with our microbiome. Studies show that as an adult, what impacts our microbiome the most is our lifestyle. So where we live, our circle of friends, our network, the foods we eat, etc., overall lifestyle. So nature versus nurture, we get our microbiome similar to our moms at birth, but over time it changes completely depending on our lifestyle. Now you see at the bottom here of the slide, there's a symbiotic relationship between the microbiome and the immune system. And that's for a couple of different reasons. They actually co-evolve together and they're critically intertwined for several reasons. One, it helps with a vital function of digestion. And then 2, it's preventing the growth of different pathogens and preventing them from entering our body. So if our T cells, which attacks different pathogens, if it didn't evolve with our microbiome, then we would be attacking ourselves. So it co-evolves together for a very specific reason, and just to keep ourselves safe. I like to call it training camp. Our immune system is trained on what is a threat and what isn't a threat. And then that way it knows how to respond to this. This training camp just takes place within our microbiome. And then finally, there are certain cells in the lining of the gut that spend their entire lives just creating massive quantities of antibodies into the gut. And that is part of the immune system. Next slide. So these are our neurons, these giant thing you see in this picture, that's our vagus nerve. Our gut contains 500 million neurons. And this is why it's called our second brain, because it's constantly communicating, and it has, again, over 500 million neurons to communicate with that. Okay, I'm going to do the next slide. The vagus nerve, it controls specific body functions, such as your digestion, your heart rate, your immune system, and that travels from our brain all the way down through our heart, through our GI tract, as you can see in this image. Okay, go to the next slide. So 90% of serotonin resides in the gut. Anyone familiar with serotonin? Okay, seeing all the head nods. Amazing. So at the dorm, we are a mental health institute first, and I am honored to be a part of this team to help build up our clients in a holistic approach, and to be able to support the treatment they get through therapy, through different groups, through different trauma groups. So this is why we talk about the bread and butter of why nutrition is so important. So 90% of serotonin, it is produced in the gut. And research believe that way our gut has access to our vagus nerve, and it can continually communicate back and forth. The bacteria is what communicates with the intestinal wall, and this asks these neurotransmitters to communicate with the brain. There's a couple of different studies that you see here that I'm obsessed with. So sterile mice, completely sterile, they produce 60% less serotonin than the brothers full of bacteria that were next door. And then they added back the bacteria into these sterile mice, and their levels returned to normal. So that just shows how important the microbiome is. Now, the second study that you see here, which is truly interesting, they found that when they were feeding these mice probiotics, it reduced the amount of stress hormone cortisol that was found in their blood. However, when they cut the vagus nerve, the probiotic had no effect at all. So that just shows why the brain, mind, body connection is so important there, and how it's truly our second gut and is communicating constantly in that way. So one thing I like to share, you can go back to the last slide. So talking about in the beginning of this presentation, when a client tells me like, I don't want to eat, I'm too anxious, I am not hungry, I don't feel hungry, I don't feel full, I don't feel anything in my body. Well, I always tell them, even if we're anxious, we still have to eat. So one way I like to explain this is, imagine your gut is your pilot and your brain is your co-pilot. If you're not feeling hunger or fullness cues, which usually is around every 4 hours we need to eat something. But if we're not feeling hungry and it's been about 6 hours since we had something to eat, then our co-pilot, our brain, needs to tell ourselves like, okay, it's time to eat something. It's been 6 hours. I know you're anxious, but we need to fuel our bodies in an appropriate way. So even if we're feeling anxious, we still have to eat. And this will just help aid in blood sugar control. It keeps our cortisol levels, which I can go on and on about cortisol and the stress hormone. But if we're eating regularly, that helps with our stress hormone and cortisol levels as well. And also keeps our energy and mood more stable overall as well. So that's one way I like to think about this mind-body connection, is our pilot and our co-pilot. Okay. So now let's get into the food. This is where we're going to spend the bread and butter of this time, because I know that's probably why you came. So 2 words I want you to memorize for the rest of your time: density and diversity. Does anyone take a probiotic or has heard of probiotics? Great, I see a couple hands raised. I know some people feed probiotics to their dogs, but I want to encourage you to make sure, Alyssa's raising her hand, I want to make sure that you're feeding yourself probiotics as well. And the truth is, if you're eating a diverse diet, then you're probably getting enough, but We hear probiotics a lot, but maybe not prebiotics. So what are they? What's the difference? And when do we need these things? So let's go ahead and start with probiotics in the blue. Probiotics, these are the live bacteria that we've been talking about today in the microbiome. Probiotics, they are active bacterial cultures. So these come from fermented foods. A lot of times I see people drink a kombucha that costs like $4, right? I'm going to probably break some hearts right now. The truth is, if you're not having them consistently, it's not really doing things for your gut. It's more wise to take a probiotic or to eat something more consistently in that way. Like yogurt, that's another thing that's for fermented foods, but you want to make sure you're taking them consistently. That's what our gut bacteria loves. So that's probiotics. And I want you to think of diversity. Now, prebiotics, this is the food for the specific bacteria. Prebiotics are substances that can only be metabolized by the gut bacteria and not the human host. So these are high fiber foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Have you heard apple cider like will help you lose weight? Something out there in diet culture? Yeah, the truth is why that got that rep is because apple cider vinegar is a prebiotic. And diet culture has twisted it to make you believe this thing, when the truth is, if you're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and whole grains, you're getting prebiotics in your system. So what I like to explain this to clients is, imagine your microbiome, and we're going to think of our bacteria in the form of shapes. I like stars. So let's say my gut bacteria is in the shape of stars. And let's say Amanda's in the shape of like, I don't know, diamonds. So in order to make sure we get some more diversity in that, then Amanda is going to have some more fermented foods, and I'm going to have some more fermented foods. So that way I can get some more of the diamonds, she can get some more of the stars. And we want our bacteria to look like diamond, stars, circles, squares. We want a diversity of different strands of this bacteria, of different bacteria, because studies show that's what is more important, not how much bacteria we have, which is density, but the diversity of them. So fermented foods, honestly, this is the one area that the American diet really slacks in. So when someone comes up to me and they ask, should I take a probiotic? Check yes, check no, I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, check with your doctor first, most definitely. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure we have something consistently. Now with density, I always say to my clients, think about those high fiber foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. If you focus on diversity and density, then we're going to continue not to just get different amounts of the square, oval, diamond, heart, star, triangle shapes. We're going to get more and more of them. And this will just help our immune system. That helps with the mind-body connection. So I want you to think about this for a second. What do you call low levels of neurotransmitters in the brain? Depression. And low levels of transmitters in the gut is constipation. Now, if there's elevated neurotransmitters in the brain, we would call that anxiety. Elevated levels of neurotransmitters in the gut, that is diarrhea. So it's very common for our clients that we see here at the dorm, is IBS. We see IBS a lot here at the dorm. And how much is that like nature versus nurture? Is it secondary to the anxiety that they're experiencing as they're working through with their therapist and coach, the different traumas they've been through and other things? So that is something I'm really passionate about, is let's support ourselves by making sure, one, are we eating enough? And then are we eating consistently? Are we eating complete meals? Are we eating a carb, protein, and fat? Are we getting variety in our diet? Are we having fruits and vegetables and whole grain? And then from there, we can personalize things like, what's your preferences? We want to make sure that we're hitting each of these levels of eating, because we're all coming in with a different level of eating, to make sure that we're supporting our microbiome in that way, to support our mental health as well. So that is my big spiel on the diet portion of our microbiome and diversity and density, I want to encourage everyone. So here's some ways I like to encourage people to increase this in their diet. When we go to the grocery store, we typically get the same thing every single time. But if you think about it, there are so many different produce we probably have never even tried before. So if you can go to the grocery store, even just once a month, and buy a whole new thing of produce you've never bought before, and then try it out, see if you like it, and throughout the whole year, do that every single month, then by the end of the year, you might surprise yourself. And there might be 2 things you're buying regularly from the grocery store to increase that diversity and density. There's a website I like. It's, Alyssa, help me out with this. Is it generalfoodguide.org? She'll type it in the chat. This is great. It tells you what produce is in season. Thank you so much. It tells you what type of produce is in season. And I want to encourage everyone to try that, because eating, it shouldn't be a chore, feel like something we have to do, but it can be something fun that we can explore with curiosity, to increase the diversity and density. I'm a graduate of Ohio State, and when I was there, it was a while ago, they were doing a study on twins at a preschool level that there was next door. And what was really cool is they're testing their microbiomes, and they're seeing if the microbiomes had an effect on their personality. So it was a twin that was more extroverted. Was that truly their temperament, or were they more extroverted because their microbiome looked a certain way? Same with the ones that were more introverted. Where the twins that were more introverted, was it because that's what their microbiome looked like, or was that their temperament? So we're just on the cusp of all this research that's coming out. And like for me, am I extroverted because of my microbiome or because of my temperament? So I love these conversations and all the research that's really just on the cusp, because it's so new. It's really fresh, and it's always changing. It's constantly changing. So fermented foods, high fiber foods, this is what we want to incorporate in our gut. All right, next slide. So this is a case study. A client we have here, Chelsea. So Chelsea is a 19-year-old female, admitted July 2021, and the name was changed to protect the client. Admitted in July 2021 with no prior history of disordered eating. But during a nutrition assessment, she expressed to me that she actually has a history of purging in middle school, minimum once a week, and she's been restricting all of high school. Now, she came to us and she was eating just 1 meal a day. That was in July. Diagnosis was depression, PTSD, anxiety, socially using substances, and self-harming. Now, March 2021, this client is graduating the dorm. Client is consuming 3 meals a day minimum, also having snacks, stopped self-harming, fostered an amazing social network here at the dorm, was actually community member of the month recently, is enrolled in school and getting ready to return to school full-time in the fall. And I'm so proud of this client because you can see them grow on every level here. And, being at the dorm, it's so multifaceted and so different because they are working on their trauma while they're working on their executive functioning, while they're working on the food. But what I love about this client specifically, Chelsea, has had an eating disorder since they were 13 years old. And their microbiome of an eating disorder, the microbiome is usually I'm trying to think of a different word that I want to say. It's pretty sterile. It's pretty beat up. It's hurt. It's been through a lot of damage. So we're kind of working from the ground up to get that mind-body connection there again, right? So this client, I love talking about her because she never had treatment until here in terms of eating specifically. And as she's been able to increase her meals and also increase that diversity and density in it, and also go through her fear foods that she has, which included what we would think like cake, but also fruits, other things that are really important to our everyday lifestyle, and just functioning in society and for a microbiome, she's able to incorporate with now. And it's been really exciting to be a part of her journey, and I'm extremely proud of her. And it kind of goes back to that nature nurture talk, like how much of this is because she's eating more, that she's able to participate more in groups and other things, but also with the microbiome, that mind-body connection, having a more diverse gut now and helping her microbiome, how much is that impacting her stressors? How much is that impacting her anxiety, depression? They say the best way to have a more combat depression is having diverse gut in terms of nutrition specifically. This is outside of medication, treatment team, and healthcare and mental health specifically. They say a diverse gut is the most important thing. So I'm really proud of Chelsea. It's an honor to see her grow here at the dorm. And just what we do here at the dorm is we don't force clients to come in, and we don't preach fruits and veggies. We follow an intuitive eating approach, as you have all learned being at this presentation. And just to see her willing to step into this growth and step into her worthiness and include these foods on her own and cooking more, it's been a joy to see. So thank you everyone so much. I appreciate you hearing me ramble all the sciencey things in the beginning.
Thank you so much. It's I feel like this is such an interesting topic, and people, generally speaking, just want more and more information and want to learn. I certainly learned a lot by listening as well. If people have questions or comments and you want to turn your mic on and say them out loud, or if you want to drop questions into the chat box, please feel free to do so. I'm curious, how many are there also other dietitians on this Zoom? Is it mostly mental health treatment providers? Feel free to drop that in as well. Hi, Mary.
Oh yeah, hi. I'm really happy to meet you guys, because I had no idea you were so alternative thinking and on the cutting edge in terms of health and wellness, and how important the gut biome is with the brain health, and how important it is, and how much food affects how we function in the world. And I actually live on the east side, and several people have said, Mary, don't you know those guys over at the dorm? And I said, no, I don't. So a colleague of mine sent me the link. I'm a CASAC, and I'm a coach in the city, and I'm a health counselor, and completely passionate about the whole mind, body, spirit approach of health and healing. So yeah, Ali, you said some amazing, you talked about all this amazing information that I am completely passionate about, and I'm also, most importantly, passionate about meeting clients where they're at, because you don't want to be telling someone to be taking omega-3 fatty acids if they can hardly eat. You know what I mean? All of it is about baby steps. I've been sober myself since I was in my early 20s, and I just know how important, the step-by-step process is. And I just think sometimes with this information, it can be helpful for the kids. I always call everyone a kid, but it's helpful for them to change. When you learn and think about your gut biome as, your garden that you want to start taking care of, that kind of things. Anyway, I'm psyched to be here and look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Thank you, Mary, so much.
Thank you, Mary. I would actually love to share really quickly, going off of that, here at the dorm, because like you said, we have to meet clients where they're at. Overall, we do an intuitive eating approach, but we have to meet them where they're at the bottom. So people come in, maybe they're restricting hardcore, and they just want to make sure the quantity that they're eating enough. But we might have clients come in and they're not coming here for with eating as their first thing. Maybe it's substance use, other things. So maybe they're over here getting more variety, what we talked about today, the diversity and density. Also, we would like to work on, so first, quantity. Are you eating enough? consistency. Are you eating 3 times a day? And then going into balance, are you having a carb, protein, and fat at each meal? Because they each serve an important purpose. From there, variety, making sure we get some fruits and vegetables, whole grains, have a variety to our diet. This is when they're starting to come into cooking groups that we have here at the dorm. And then finally, personalization, because your preferences are different than my preferences, Mary, and same with our clients. So I would love to share this because a lot of times people ask, how can you serve such a diverse population? And this is the way we do it.
Mhm. It's easy to understand with that approach. And like you say, everybody is bioidentical, and you have to kind of, when meeting them where they're at, find out what are their likes, what is their history, you know, how did they grow up, how does their family, all of that, you know, how that all affects where you're meeting them in your office in that very moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a handful of questions that have been coming into the chat, so I'm going to start fielding them your way, Ali. Jacqueline is asking, could you please, I guess this question is probably, can you address the stress eaters, high fat / carbohydrates?
Mm.
Jacqueline, did you want to expand on that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, just to know, like, how would you have create a balance? Because, you know, there's some people who they eat from the point of stress. So they'll consume more fat, or it could be, you know, sugar, whatever it is based on their stress levels. So I just needed, you know, you just to touch on that, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jacqueline. That's a great question. And that's why here at the dorm, we address, everyone has a dietitian, a therapist, and a coach. So as a team, we can talk about like what's going on in their lives right now. Maybe they're going through more trauma therapy right now. So maybe they are stress eating. And Alyssa and I, the other dietitian here, she's here on the call at the dorm in NYC. We talk about 3 types of hunger. So there is physical hunger, which we all think about, like you feel your stomach growling, so you're physically hungry. The second type is emotional hunger, which I'll talk about in a second. And I believe that's what you're referring to, Jacqueline. And then the third type of hunger is sensory hunger. So sensory hunger is, you know, Levain Bakery in New York City, or I guess there's some in DC now too. You walk by a bakery and all of a sudden you want the cookie because you smell it. So that's sensory hunger. And we are given all 3 of these types of hunger for a reason. We're meant to enjoy it, but we have to ask ourselves when we're eating, what type of hunger are we experiencing in that moment? Is it one type of hunger or is it all 3? And then if it is emotional hunger, if someone is has a history of binge eating, we have to ask ourselves, like, what am I really hungry for? Is it a sense of community? Is it safety? Is it play? So with the therapist and other people, we can ask about these questions. Another thing we like to do is let's go ahead and write our binge foods and let's start to habitualize it, because a lot of times a client, they will say to me, I'm never going to buy Fruit Loops again, because every time I have Fruit Loops, I'm going to binge on all of it. And it's like, okay, you're never gonna have Fruit Loops ever again, because I guarantee the second you find Fruit Loops, we're just going to go into that guilt shame spiral again. So let's go ahead, let's have Fruit Loops, but let's do it together and let's start to habitualize it. So let's have a little bit every single day. And I promise by day 15, 16, they're going to start getting sick of it, but let's start to habitualize one thing at a time, and a portion that's controlled with a dietitian. You can't habitualize the food on your own. You have to seek out a dietitian, a professional to do that. But when it comes to binge eating and stress eating, I like to ask clients these types of questions. What type of hunger are you experiencing? Physical, sensory, or emotional? And then what are we really hungry for if it is emotional hunger? Because if it's community, let's call a friend. And it's okay to emotionally eat as well if we know where it's coming from, if we have a plan in place. But I like to think about it as if you're driving a car, what food can be a coping mechanism, but it can't be in the driver's seat. It has to be in the back seat, along with journaling, meditation, fitness, other things. It can't be in the driver's seat. So we have to ask ourselves what's actually driving the car in this moment.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Another question that's coming in is about Greek yogurt. Is the best yogurt Greek yogurt? And is it okay to put it in a smoothie?
Absolutely, it's okay to put it in a smoothie. Yogurt, it's actually pretty specific from person to person. And I love this question. I'm really passionate about yogurt. It's one of my favorite snacks because it has carb, proteins, and fat. It's delicious. So it depends on the person. If someone has low calcium, for example, or maybe their bone density isn't there, I'm going to tell you to get a full fat yogurt. If you do like Greek yogurt, yes, there's more cultures in it. So go ahead and have that if that's what your goal for microbiome, and if you enjoy it too, as well. And it's more than okay to put it in a smoothie. I know a lot of times we hear that these cultures will get destroyed in a blender. Maybe that's why you're asking that question, but yeah, go ahead and put it in a smoothie. It'll make it thicker. It'll make it more delicious. So whatever yogurt you like the best, but if you do like Greek yogurt, I would recommend that.
I think that's such an important distinction. You know, you have to you should enjoy it. The best yogurt is the yogurt that you're going to eat and enjoy eating and not hate eating. That's a really important part of the equation. Can you recommend any tests to check how your gut biome is doing, what's needed, what's missing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So first I would recommend going to your primary care physician. There's also a gastroenterologist. They can do different tests, like they would have you breathe into something, they would take blood work. A stool sample is going to be the way that you get the most information. I love talking about stool samples with clients just to get their reaction. It's hilarious. But there is a lot of studies and research going on in this. It's like, if maybe I was on a lot of antibiotics, right? That wipes out our gut flora. Well, let's say I get a stool sample from someone who has a very diverse gut. Can that help replenish it? And studies say yes, but there are other things that they're testing right now with that as well, because if someone has different hormones that excrete like cortisol or other things in their own body, we're finding that can be adjusted to that as well, or like leptin or hunger hormone and stuff. But a stool sample, that would probably be your best bet, but I'm not a doctor, so go to your gastroenterologist and ask them.
Probiotics, which are best? Do they all need to be refrigerated?
That's a great question. Whatever you're going to take consistently. I'll be honest, if you're eating a diverse diet and you do eat fermented foods, you don't need one. But I know myself personally, so I do take a probiotic, and I take a powdered probiotic because, again, I know that's what I will take consistently, because maybe sometimes I don't remember something in the refrigerator. So I take one that's a powder and I just put it on my tongue or my water that I can take to go. That's a really great question. Whatever you're going to take consistently is best. And ask your doctor first.
And somebody was trying to remember when you spoke about what causes constipation. It's low levels of what?
Of the neurotransmitters in our gut. If you think about it, would create less stool output. Same with diarrhea, increase in neurotransmitters in our gut.
Okay. You spoke a little bit in the presentation about, the environment and how where we live impacts what's going on inside. So, we saw on this call, we have people from all over the country, but can you speak about sort of like the differences between living in, say, like a city, like New York City, versus living, I think we had somebody, and there's no value judgments here, living in like Idaho, which is, mountains and woods and nature. How could that impact us internally differently? And I love Idaho, FYI.
I love this question. I'm from the middle of nowhere, Ohio, just to put that out there. And I live in New York City. So I've experienced both. And actually, when I moved here, now to think about it, I did feel it's shift in like my GI system for a little bit. I think a lot of it has to do with the access to food, first and foremost. Like, what is our access to food? Here in New York, you can get anything on Instacart in a second. But also that can go into a lot of different elements. economic status, other things as well. But a lot of it is our community who are with. So if we are surrounded by people who maybe their personalities are a certain way, you know, like you kind of pick up on that. Our microbiome does as well in a certain way. Maybe people who are more extroverted or more outgoing or positive thinking, forward thinkers, or we adjust by that as well. And in terms of the environment, in New York, there's constantly stressors going on. We have sensory stressors just by the horns that are going off. We have other stressors like emotional stressors that's happening, physical stressors, the train's late, so we're freaking out. And that can adjust our cortisol level. And cortisol level has an inverse relationship with melatonin, our sleep hormone. So when one's high, one's low, vice versa. So that can impact our overall health, which just also goes into our gut health as well. I don't know if that answers your question completely, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you. It does. Can probiotics, prebiotics be taken into the body only through food, or I guess, you know, the oral supplements? I've been seeing hand soaps, lotions, advertising pre-probiotic, and think that might just be a marketing tactic. Thoughts?
That's a really great question. I'm not a skincare expert at all, but I see a lot of things out there of like this toner has prebiotics and probiotics in it. And I think we should all do a personal challenge to see if that helps. I hear it helps with hormonal acne, but I don't know why. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of it is a marketing tactic, Albert. A lot of it is. If you go into Sephora right now, they will try to sell you vitamins. Why is Sephora selling vitamins? You know, they're trying to sell you things based off of like, here's a collagen gummy for this thing and that thing. It's if they spend more money on the branding, like on the outside, the product that it's inside, and then instead of the product itself, if they spend more money on the marketing than the product, then that's probably a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have 3 teenagers. Any suggestions on getting them adequate protein and fat at breakfast? Carbs are easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this question. You know, there's different foods that we can pull up something real quick too. The other dietitian, Alyssa, made this. So thank you, Alyssa. Oh, do you see my whole screen? So this is helpful. So you can do a meat, but also yogurt has protein, eggs, cottage cheese, smoked salmon, cheese, peanut butter, nuts. These are things that have protein and also like fat as well in it too. So these are some great options to incorporate at breakfast and getting more variety.
Yeah, with I can just share personally, not with a teenager, but with younger ones, you know, pancakes, you can sneak a lot of good stuff into pancakes and they just have no idea, especially if you throw some chocolate chips in there. Like chocolate chips can mask like, you know, crushed oats and eggs and everything else that you're throwing into those pancakes, and it makes for a really solid breakfast. And then also sometimes the kiddos like absolutely smoothies, because it, like, especially if you put them in a cup with a straw, it like their mind thinks that they're eating a milkshake, even though it's like a smoothie because it has a fun straw in it. And there's really yummy things that you can just like put on yogurt as well, you know, fruits and seeds and some like honey or agave, just anything, you know, to help them get in the other stuff that they might, if you put like a bowl of strawberries in front of them, they would never eat it. But if you blend a banana and put it into your pancake mix, like they're not really gonna know because they're just eating a pancake.
Yeah. Overnight oats, you can make it really desserty as well and pack a lot of good things in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all, I feel like with certain age groups, it's all about the presentation.
Yeah, that's so true.
All right. Any other questions? We have just a little bit of time left. I always like to give a break in between now and the next Zoom and respect everybody's time so that they're not rushing to the next Zoom. But were there any last minute questions that people wanted to ask before we begin to conclude? I don't see any hand signals.
Oh, I'll do one.
Okay,
Can I say something?
please. Yes.
Oh, I was going to say just a suggestion for you, Amanda. There's amazing different flours that you can use that have polyphenols, and you can add them to pancakes. And there's one in particular. Let me show it to you.
I feel like I've become the pancake expert, like flipping pancakes in my house.
Yeah, it's do you see this?
Yeah.
It's by an integrative doctor named Jeffrey Bland. And it's like, it's filled with polyphenols and a lot of different healthy vitamins and minerals that the kids never, I have a child and he never notices, and I make pancakes all the time.
Awesome.
So there's
Thank you. Thank you.
just a
And thank you.
suggestion.
Awesome. Thank you everybody so much for attending today. And thank you especially Ali for taking the time to share all this wonderful information with us. Just to give everybody a heads up, our next roundtable event, we will be talking about racial trauma and mental health implications, shifting from resilience to liberation. Judith Sedora and Tracy Hopkins will be the co-presenters of that presentation, and an invitation to that roundtable will be sent out directly following this roundtable. So keep your eyes open for that and for the slides, and feel free to go on the YouTube channel, etc. If you have any questions following this presentation, you can email us and we will absolutely get back to you as well.